talking to our neighbors about why it's so important that they vote Republican this year. I am so thrilled and honored to be able to introduce your next speaker to you today. One of the strongest leaders in the U.S. Senate. It's one of the greatest Republican leaders that we have had here in New Hampshire in a very long time. A loud, clear voice for freedom in our country. A loud, clear voice trying to get the truth about things like what happened in Benghazi. Standing up, taking the tough votes when other people aren't willing to do it. Please help me welcome our Senator, Kelly Ayotte.
I am so glad to be in this room and see so many great Republicans. I wish I saw this in Washington, trust me. But first of all, let me thank Jennifer for her leadership in the party. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your fortitude. And thank you for going up against Ray Buckley, because we need you to do that, and we appreciate everything that you're doing for the party. Very honored to be here today with my friend and colleague, Senator Rand Paul. So I know you're going to hear from him later. He is a principled conservative leader in Washington, and I think that you will see that Senator Paul very much appreciates our state motto, live free or die. So I'm very glad to have my friend Rand here today, and thank you for being here at our Unity Breakfast. We appreciate it. Thanks for your leadership. I think one of the things that Rand and I were talking about over there as we were sitting is how important this breakfast is. That after we have our hard-fought primaries, that we all come together to understand that no matter how hard-fought our primaries were, and by the way, I see my friend, Ovid LaMontagne, and I want to thank him. I remember very well that he and I had a very hard-fought primary and how difficult that was. But I also remember so well what a great friend he was when I won that primary, and he stood up and he supported me fully in the general election, which made the difference for me to be able to win in November. So that's really what this is all about. I'm honored to see Ovid and his wife Betty here today, and making sure that we all work together. I want to thank everyone who stood up and ran for office, because it is not easy to run for office. We all know that. We all know the strain that it puts on our families. We all know the time and commitment that was put in by every single candidate here. And I want to thank everyone who put their name on the ballot, because that takes courage, that takes dedication, and we appreciate your willingness to do that, and I hope that you will do it again, because your willingness to do that, regardless of what the outcome was, says a lot about you and how important you think that our principles are in the Republican Party, and how much you want to make a difference for this country, for this state, for every level in our community. And in particular, I want to thank those that ran. I'm not going to call everyone who ran for office today, but I really want to thank those who ran for statewide office, because I know what that takes campaigning throughout our state. And I want to certainly thank Andrew Hemingway for running for governor. Thank you, Andrew. I want to thank Senator Bob Smith and Jim Rubens for running for U.S. Senate. Thank you for. And I want to congratulate our candidates who have won, and we need them to win in November for the sake of our country. First of all, Walt Havenstein for governor. Scott Brown for the United States Senate. Frank Guinta for the first CD, and Marilyn Garcia for the second CD. That is a have a great group of people at the top of the ticket that are going to help us at every single level, because not only do we want to win governor and make sure that we have Walt Havenstein in the State House so that we can ensure that New Hampshire doesn't have a sales or an income tax, but that we have a responsible budget in New Hampshire and in Concord. But also we want to make sure that Chuck Morse continues to lead the Senate, and send him some more senators. We need that. We don't want Gene Chandler to be the minority leader anymore. We need him to take over in the House so that we can stop the agenda in Concord of more spending, more taxes, more regulations that make it difficult for our businesses. And the same thing has to happen in Washington. I got to tell you, it's been pretty lonely in the delegation over the last couple of years. So I'm really hoping that you will send me some great teammates in November. Because if we don't win this election in November, then unfortunately it's not just what can happen to our great state of New Hampshire, but it's also what can happen throughout the country. Because this race, up and down this ticket, this race for the United States Senate, this race for our congressional seats are going to make a difference in terms of whether we have to continue to listen to Harry Reid in Washington, and that Harry Reid continues to run the United States Senate, how he has warped it from the most deliberative body in the world as intended by our founding fathers to the my way or the highway body, to the detriment of this nation. And we need to make sure that Nancy Pelosi never, ever comes forward as leader in the House again. So I will tell you that as I look back at our election in 2012, here's the unfortunate part. They beat us on the ground. We can't afford to be beat on the ground this year. So every single person in this room, we need to do everything that we can to unite around this ticket, because if we don't unite together as Republicans, there's only one group that wins, and that's Democrats. And that's, unfortunately, New Hampshire loses and the country loses when they win. So I would ask you, please, come together, because this time we need to beat them on the ground. We need to go beyond just knocking on the doors, phone calls, which we have to do. Literally, all of your neighbors, getting out in your community, social networking, getting out there on the internet, meeting them on every front, because our principles are strong. We need to make a difference, because I'm so worried about our country. I'm worried about New Hampshire if Democrats win in this election in November. So I hope we will all come together. I'll be working as hard as I can for every single one of our candidates up and down this ticket, because I know together that we can make New Hampshire even stronger than it is now, that we can get people working in this country. And most of all, as we think about the $17 trillion in debt in Washington, the national security challenges that we face, when we think about the issues that are not being brought for a vote in the United States Senate, because someone like Harry Reid is in charge doing the bidding of a president like Barack Obama, there's too much at stake in this election for anyone to sit it out. And I know no one in this room will sit it out. We're all going to work together on to victory in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ayotte. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership. That was fantastic. I am thrilled to introduce our next speaker to you. When you first sent this gentleman to Congress a couple of years ago and he replaced Carol Shea Porter, it was reported that it was the biggest swing from liberal to conservative leadership that took place in the entire country. It's our job to make sure that that swing takes place again. Please welcome the next congressman from the 1st District of New Hampshire, Frank Guinta.
Good morning. Everyone's got to feel pretty good today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have such a great opportunity, not just as a party, not just as a state, but as a country. As a country, to restore the freedoms, the liberties, and the justice that every single American deserves under the United States Constitution. And it starts here, right in the live free or die state, New Hampshire. We had so many great Republican candidates who decided to put their name on a ballot. And I congratulate every single one up and down the ticket. It does take a lot to put your name on the ballot. It takes a lot to try to earn people's support, to try to have the courage to go through the process. It is not easy. And for all of those people who put your name on a ballot, I hope you continue to stay not just active in elected politics, but make sure our Republican family heals, unifies, and focuses over the next 8 weeks on solving the biggest challenge that we have here in New Hampshire, and that is getting rid of the Democrats. I want to take a moment to thank Brendan Kelly, who ran in this race, and also Dan Innes. Dan Innes, who is a newcomer to this process, the first time he has run. He was a gentleman to me during this entire campaign. He called me graciously on Tuesday evening and accepted not only the results, but pledged everything that he has to beat Carol Shea Porter in November. And I thank you very much, Dan. You know, the Republican Party is a big family. And every couple of years, we go through primaries. That is good for our state, it is good for our party, and it's very different than what the Democrats do here in New Hampshire. The Democrats anoint their candidates. They tell people, they dictate, here are who the people that are going to run. Whether you like it or not, you have no say. The Republican Party in New Hampshire is very different. The Republican Party says, we welcome the opportunity for anyone to put their name on a ballot, to encourage more growth in our party, to encourage ideas, to encourage the back and forth of policy discussion. And then we have a decision to make on primary day. This is good for the process. This is good for America. This is good for freedom. And it's good for liberty. And now, 3 days after this election, we have a responsibility and an obligation as candidates to reach out to those supporters of the other campaigns and ask for your support. Those people who chose not to vote for me on Tuesday, I understand that you had two great choices on that ballot. But today, we've got to stand together. We've got to focus on the true problem, which is Carol Shea Porter, the person who doesn't represent anyone's interest in this room and doesn't represent the interests of New Hampshire. So I invite those who selected somebody else on Tuesday to join this campaign, join this team, and you will get everything from me, not just as your representative, but as someone who is going to help every Republican up and down the ticket get elected this November. I want to talk for just a moment about how I decided to come to the decision to run again. 2012 was a tough year for Republicans in New Hampshire and a tough year for Republicans across the country. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, the country is wondering, why did we elect Barack Obama? Why did we elect Carol Shea Porter? Why did we elect Andy Custom? You see it in the polls in New Hampshire, you see it in the polls across the country. People have learned the lesson, but we have an opportunity and obligation to provide our solutions, our ideas that go beyond just the Republican Party. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that our principles serve not just Republicans, but independents and Democrats of all stripes, giving families the opportunity for economic growth, to go to college, to have opportunity that their parents and grandparents didn't have. I had that opportunity. My folks, Rich and Ginny, who are here today, they didn't have the ability to go to college. But they worked hard, they started a business, they had 3 kids, and I was the first in my family to go to college, first to go to grad school, first to run for office. I'm proud of that American heritage. And that is what we can afford, each and every American, if we elect the right people this November. And we can do it by reducing the size and scope of the federal government and its reach into your pocket. We can do it by reforming the tax code and having economic growth. We can do it by finally repealing and replacing Obamacare, which is killing our small businesses. Deal with the regulatory business reform requirements that our small business owners need. Become energy independent once and for all, and return government back to the people, the most important thing that we can do as Americans. This last year and a half, Carol Shea Porter, I don't know if anyone can find her. She rarely comes back to the state. Back in August, she spent some time in California raising money with Nancy Pelosi and Tom Steyer. Didn't spend time here trying to communicate with constituents. There's a clear difference between myself and Carol. When I served, not only did we have 20 town hall meetings and 6 job fairs, got people back to work here in the Granite State, had manufacturing summits, a women's summit, but also spoke for the people. Carol's very different. She's very inaccessible, doesn't have the opportunity, doesn't afford us the opportunity to speak with her. She's indifferent on issues, on local issues especially. Doesn't stand up for Great Bay in her own backyard. Doesn't stand up for the fishermen on the seacoast that are a vital part of our economy. And she's inaccessible. She has not had one town hall meeting in the 2 years that she's been serving in this term. A stark difference to how she started her political career. So as Republicans, as Americans, let's stand together. Let's stand for Granite State families. Let's do everything we can over the next 8 weeks to take this to them, to be on the offense, and to show Granite Staters and America that when you elect Republicans, the economy gets better. You have more solutions. You have actually more bipartisanship because we get things done. So for the final 8 weeks, I invite you to join this campaign. Make sure that we get rid of Carol Shea Porter once and for all, and I will always be loyal to the state of New Hampshire. Thank you all very much.